Okay. How's everyone doing? We got a big list of stocks for this week. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover them all, but I'll try to do. Hmm. What's up here? All right. So we'll start off with Apple. All right. So we have gamma flip point moving back up above delta. Gamma neutral moving back up above delta neutral. Looks like Friday found support at GN. Um, and there is a decent amount of support at the 200 strike. Not a ton, but a little bit. Nothing's gonna slip unless it loses 200. Got gamma neutral, yeah, the 200 strike there. Delta side. Probably need to get back under 195 before it's on any significant downturn. Back under 195, it could slip towards the 180 mark, but guidance wasn't too bad. Volatility's come down pretty hard after earnings, both on the 30 and the 10 day. I would be interested in how much of this out of the money call positioning, especially up here, like 215 to 230 is sold. Let's see what people's takes were. Bearish, neutral. Kind of hold this range until vol picks up for earnings in a month. What? Apple just had earnings Thursday. Are you asking if it'll... Don't worry, we're here to help you mourn the loss of an extra $25 a month. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to change my budget. All right, so Apple does look stable. Oh, that's there. ABBV bullish on a weaker dollar over the next few months. I think the recovery on it's been pretty decent. Gamma's picking up. I mean, it looks bullish now. I don't. As a flight to safety on a weaker dollar, yes, I agree. But I don't think that's the only driver of the trade here. ABBV also had earnings back on the 25th. Beat. Still an issue with their payout ratio, but margins improved pretty significantly over quarter 4, which was a little less bullish. I would say it doesn't look bad for continued upside. I mean, at least for now, the momentum is there. Seems like 200 is going to be a big inflection point. There's quite a lot of delta there as well. Most of it stacked really heavily to the call side. So I would say that these in the money calls are going to continue to be supportive for some time. Looks like call interest out at 210 as well. Volatility is starting to come down. On the 10 and the 30 day. 60, 90, okay. Might run into some resistance at 200. So this could be a local top, but I've definitely seen ABBV continue to run without significant option support. And I would say the break up after the recent consolidation also tracks with this being a pretty bullish move. The one thing I don't like is the gamma neutral being so far under DN. It makes me think that a lot of near dated profit taking has already occurred. Gamma max is slightly moving up. What's up next? ASTS Guts 2035, still viable, stronger uptrend, and NQ. Why Guts over just a straddle? I mean, I don't particularly like you're doing 2035 Guts. Hold on. Let me see something here. How the fuck do you get rid of this? Oh. Right, you're doing 20. 35. I don't. I'm not doing that because that'll just be a strangle. Short? Guts 2035. Is that the short Guts? Raise my pigeon whale? I'm doing alright, Frost and Flakes. Thanks for asking. What's up, Bert? Um, okay, I don't really know why you would do a Guts here, or even a short one. Um, but I can see like so when you run into something like this, I feel like this is more important than going through more stocks. When you run into a situation like this at gamma neutral, sometimes it can benefit. This is terrible. I don't really understand the logic behind that. Maybe you can explain it to me via DMs or on chat, whatever, if you see this. But um, what I would generally do in a situation like this is probably like pick up like a straddle, but maybe on the upside call, right? Like say I did like a May OPEC straddle, but on the upside call, sell, like maybe sell like the 30. That way I have a little bit more like downside exposure because like not likely to go above gamma max for very long would be the assumption. And you could do like the shorter dated upside call and then still get the downside exposure. Or, you know, if you went further out on this, like say you did the 23rd there and then switch this to the OPEX. Like that. That way in the short term, if it runs to the upside, right, your puts just kind of hanging out there. And you can profit off of that upside spread. And then, you know, when you go to close that, you could even like, you know, even as it moves up, you could sell a shorter dated put Like if it breaks gamma max, you could sell like this put, like on the 9th against your longer dated put, in order to offset some of the loss, right? That creates like this little thing up until the 9th, right, where you profit from it just being a gamma max. But you still get profit if it moves out above gamma max. But then, if it fails eventually, but hopefully this put is expired by then, and then you would have, downside exposure. So that's one way of like kind of trying to manage like tests of gamma max when there's an expectation that there'll be a failure. However, we should probably look at the rest of the chain here. Delta's increasing, so is gamma. It does appear that there is some upside interest out to 30, maybe even a little bit beyond that. But not very much delta to the upside until 30. So 30 is going to be like a very strong resistance. I would say that the current level it's at is probably going to change, which may be why you chose the gut strategy. Like it falls back to 25 or pushes up to 30. Um, IV's increasing though, which is generally pretty bullish, and there's still plenty of gamma even further out to the upside. So I would say, overall, right now it still looks kind of bullish and may have a chance to continue up through gamma max a little bit. Um, I don't like that gamma is not rising with price. And like the out of the money gamma is still so substantial. That's a bit odd. I mean, like gamma neutral is down at like $1. Um, Maybe it's just fucked up because there's so much. Yeah, yeah. I think it's just because gamma is positive over the entirety of the chain here. But I would say it still looks pretty bullish. BNED, XRT cost to borrow going up. Off rig show now. Time for a run on BNED. Hmm. GME maybe. Hmm. XRT correlation's pretty high. on GMA. I don't know about B. Is BNet even in XRT? We do have earnings coming up. Hmm. No, I don't have BNet options. All right. Well, give me a second. Let me see if I can cobble together some analysis real quick. Yeah, I wouldn't say this looks great. Looks like it might be getting near like a local top. I'll have them add if BNet got an options trading, I'll have them added in maybe sometime this week. But I would say the liquidity is finally starting to normalize a little bit after the squeeze. But this does kind of look like a local top, and correlation with XRT is not very positive right now. So I would say that if there were any XRT shorting, which I'm not even sure is true, then the majority of it would have already been covered over the last since like the 23rd, which kind of coincides with some price improvement. I mean, it's not really a good measure of anything, but correlation with XRT did decline during that period. So I would say that if anything was being covered, it likely has been. But I'll try to get data on that options chain if it's open again. But for now, I'm gonna skip BNED. Cat bullish, short squeeze potential or gain potential. Cat's been doing pretty well. Pushing up through VN. Yeah, I mean, I think it can keep pushing up out to about 340. There's still plenty of gamma to the upside. Oops. Gamma max is out at 340. Delta's still increasing. Gamma's picking up. Some more short dated positioning moving in. Look here. Yeah, I mean, I would say it still looks pretty bullish to the upside. For you guys asking in chat, hold on, I've got like an entire list I gotta go through first, but I'll try. Actually, there's not that many more stocks to go through. Most of them are just, well, we'll see what I can get done. Enphase. Kind of more interested in this. No, Enphase doesn't look particularly good here. Maybe somewhat neutral. It's down at $45. Jesus, it's got hammered. There's support at 45. Any put selling going on there? Upside. There's some upside volume coming in. Turn around and Vol's not looking very promising. Yeah, Enphase does look just kind of neutral. This is confusing. It's like Enphase neutral. It still has more room from positioning, up from positioning. Not really. Sounds like a bullish statement though. Like a neutral stance with a bullish analysis. Okay. Sorry, this is throwing me for a loop. Yeah, it started a little late today. Fubo, 4 million share offering 2 weeks ago, 55 million coming up. Bitcoin doesn't do anything. The fuck does Bitcoin have to do with Fubo? No precise target, just up Fubo. Figure you'll be looking at this anyway, wondering about the coming years and the opportunity to build a position back under 2.5. That's possible. We could take a look at it. Definitely saw some weakness following earnings. Pushed down near the bottom of its delta, although there is no like negative delta or gamma on the chain. I think IV is still a little bit high, so it's still decent opportunities for shorting vol, which people seem to be taking advantage of. I noted earlier in the Discord, and this is important. I'll try to talk about this a little bit actually, because I think people need to understand this. When there's like a merger and acquisition or a big fundamental shift in a stock, there can frequently be a period of time where analysts will overestimate the company's performance due to sentiment in the short term. And so basically, what happens is that analyst estimates will stay elevated, but the company will perform in line with guidance. And what this does is it creates short pressure, right? Because you have missed earnings throughout this period. But what it also does is it creates a buy opportunity for larger institutions. Now, Fubo has some actual negative things working against it. Like um, you know, there's a future dilution due to the merger, which is being more than priced in, I think, right now. But there's also, an unknown, a lot of unknowns around the revenue. And then lastly, there is a pending antitrust issue. I know you guys held this shit for 2 years, and it doubled in price. That was a good opportunity to, if not sell a lot of calls during that period of volatility. It was definitely a good time to get out, depending on if you wanted to stay in the stock or not. If you did stay in it, you're going to have to weather this. Fubo's earnings just now, revenues were pretty decent. I think a little bit above where they expected to be, but still below analyst estimates, which is why ultimately the stock went down. But EPS improved significantly. I think it's likely that we're going to see continued improvements in guidance, earnings, and revenues. But I think analyst estimates are probably going to stay slightly above where those fall, right? And so, for Fubo to see significant price improvement, it is probably going to have to beat. So, and that could take some time. I don't think they're going out of business. They have, plenty of money, and they now have an additional revenue stream, which is very significant. Was the positive EPS just from money from the settlement with Disney, though? A little bit. But their baseline revenues improved, and I think the subscribers did too. I'll buy more if it goes sub two, or yeah, at two. I might be interested. I mean, I sold what I was gonna sell. I got out of my options positions on it, and I've gotten assigned a couple times on covered calls. Um, I still have, I don't know, about 9,000 shares left. They're all like free. So I mean, I'm willing to wait it out if it dilutes down pretty hard and there's like a good buy opportunity post finalization of the merger, which could get delayed. Then I might be looking for another deal on it. But right now, I mean, it's going to be kind of in limbo for a while. IV is still very high on it, so um, there's still opportunities to sell calls if you do own the underlying stock. Probably for decent yields, and there's probably going into each earnings period, there's probably decent opportunities for CSVs as volatility rises and short vol pulls back. But I mean, I don't know if this is the best stock to do that on. It's just a cheap one to do it on. Um, I'm not gonna write all of that up, but if someone wants to like timestamp the Fubo discussion for other people, be my guest. GME neutral, bullish, no guidance, bought crypto at the top, bullish, negative guidance, but there's still the merger. Who the fuck is GME merging with? Big dump on Friday though. Is GME merging with somebody? GME looks like it was just fucking chilling between 27 and $28. They're supported 27, resistance at 28. Um, implied volatility is extremely low relative to historic performance. I would say that if you wanted IV 10 still a little high, but IV 30, 60, 90 is also a little elevated. There's like an opportunity for long vol somewhere in like the 30 to 60 window if volatility picks back up, but it may have a little bit more room to fall. Like it may not be bottomed yet, but it's probably getting fairly close to that. With the exposure to Bitcoin, you would expect that volatility would start to pick up, and that would create some upside pressure. Right now, I don't think that's getting out above like 32, but that positioning could change. And if it got out above like 35, it could kind of just keep running. We've seen that in the past. Let me check something else here. Oh no, I'm not gonna get that because it's fucking not market hours. Yeah, I was gonna look at some of the live data, but yeah, I mean, right now, that's when I can write up. XRT is off reg show, correct? Can anybody answer that? Or do I need to go check? Or can someone check real quick? Off? Alright, thank you. When is GME earnings? Not for a while, right? July. exchange arb isn't that crazy. Might be bottoming out a little there. XRT correlation starting to fall off. Volatile, yeah, volatility is very low relative to historic performance. BTC correlation isn't very high either. Just a little bit of covering. Okay. All right. GPN bullish. Put Delta can start falling off, setting up a squeeze to 100. If it can break up. Bullish trends attempting to fill the gap. Earnings Tuesday morning, but positioning bullish if it can break 80, 85. I like that one. That one's well thought out. GPN. I don't know if Put Delta's a huge advantage to the upside here. It's a bit of one. Yeah, out to about 100. It'll be hard to push past 90. 95 will be probably some resistance to that. Historic IV is climbing. Push up into a tested GN. DN, GN. Not a lot of increase in vol there, but gamma is picking up. Still got a ways to go. It really needs to get out above, yeah, above 85. Filling the gap would probably be the first target. Obviously, if earnings is a surprise, it may perform better than that, but until laying off 20% of its workforce, 20,000 people. Ouch. Iron Condor based off GS historic chart. for HR. Oh. God, what a boring fucking stock. Actually, this looks a little bearish. Increase in delta is kind of strange, but gamma's falling off really, really hard. Looks like all of the options are kind of centered around one strike. Let's see here. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I could. Right. Intel. Uh, Bullish, bearish short term, but bullish long term. I think they own a bunch of treasuries, and so there's downward pressure until that's resolved. I'm looking at 2027 Jan calls 350, 400. What? The fuck? You think Intel's gonna 10x? It's 350, 400? Has fucking Intel ever been worth $400? Merger? Is that you, Hennessy? How about AMC? Oh, god damn it. I don't even know how to respond to this. Do they have... do those calls even exist? I'm fucking losing my mind here. Jan 2027. Calls only go out to $40. We're at 35.40? Maybe. That could make more sense. I mean, there's a lot more to that thesis than just, I think, slightly bullish in the bearish in the short term. Um, hmm. It's 2027 Jan, so a year and 6 months. I don't even know if that's enough time for them to get their like their new fabs up and running. I would say the question is, what's the market gonna price in? There's so many things that could go wrong with this. They're cheap. So I mean, best case scenario, it could be a good investment, but you need a lot of things to align. Like the fabs need to be up and running. Domestic chip production needs to be an actual thing, which it's kind of not right now. Um, Although there is a push to move towards that, it could fizzle out. Um, and if relations with China are stabilized at any point, which does seem to be at least what the Treasury wants, um, then it's possible that we could just enter another cycle of manufacturing more and more chips in Taiwan. Um, I would be, I probably wouldn't. This is like something that I probably wouldn't get options on. Like if I were committed to the thesis that maybe it needs a ratio spread. No, I just I guess you'd get more exposure closer to spot, which is at least a bit more viable. But um, I think the layoffs will probably improve their earnings, like their balance sheet. But there'll be a cost to those layoffs, and that'll probably all play out over the next 6 months. And I don't think them reducing size right before moving into stronger domestic manufacturing is necessarily going to benefit them, especially if labor markets remain tight. And then the rest of the bet, like 2026 through 2027, you're hoping that the market's going to price in um, basically like a comeback for Intel. And right now, I mean, they're still very far behind AMD as far as like processor technology goes. So there's a lot of there's a lot of gaps there that and with like so many cloud compute and like commercial systems and enterprise systems moving over to AMD architecture, it'll be even harder for them to break back into that market where they've lost a significant amount of ground to their competition. So if I were to do that, I would probably just long the underlying rather than try to bet on a specific time frame. I mean, you could always roll it out after 6 months if things aren't looking the way you want them to, but I feel like it would be better to own stock than to have options just for like the stability. Because if things go poorly, I mean, Intel could drop even lower, and it could stay there for quite some time, especially if we hit a recession and like rollout of fabs slows down. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how I feel about that one. Um, MSTR bearish. Mm, just look at Bitcoin, or do you want me to actually look at MSTR's options chain? Bitcoin's starting to look like it's forming like a slightly lower high. Tapped the 97,000 resistance and rejected below it. Although it still needs to fail 93 to enter any kind of like, well, to actually mark a rejection. At least on the daily, it needs to fall back below 93. And then, beyond that, I would say retest at 89. Another failure of 89, probably bearish. Um, we could look at MSTR's options chain, but I don't really think. I think it's just entirely influenced by Bitcoin. There's still some room to the upside. Uh, Volatilities. IV30 is still relatively low. Um, IV10 is elevated, so there might be some selling on the short-dated contracts. Um, it's like right at Gamma Max, but Gamma Max is rising. So I mean, right now, right now there's still quite a lot of momentum to the upside, which opens up range out to like 420, 440. Um, it doesn't seem to be exceeding Gamma Max very much each day, but definitely a little bit of range there. Let me look at the individual positioning. Yeah, not a lot of delta to the upside above 400, so I could agree with that, but there is gamma. And if 400 is broken, 420. So, um, Oxy bullish. I'm gonna just run through these last couple of ones. Oxy looks moderately well supported at 40. Slight delta or slightly positive gamma to the upside, which could help push it up into that negative delta at 45. Break of 45 would be pretty bullish for Oxy, though, I think. Because like 45 to 50 looks pretty liquid. PDD. Technical rejection here on all time frames. Interesting. At the gap fall. There's another gap to the upside. IV coming down after diverging from HV, still below GNDN. Is it? No. It's above DNGN. Rejection 7250, 75. Okay, what the fuck is this? PDD bullish? Are these like misaligned? Okay, I don't know what's going on with these. PDD bullish. Yeah, PDD looks pretty bullish. Not much more range on it though. 115 maybe. 120. Volatility's starting to pick up. There's plenty of gamma to the upside. So maybe it can push out higher, but some of this shit is really short dated. June. Decent amount of interest for June. I like 115. Getting out to 125 is a bit more difficult. Mm. 130 is the next major resistance to the upside. So yeah, maybe this could push back to like 130. I would keep an eye on it though. The positioning needs to fill out quite a bit. Alright, I'm gonna grab the quants because they've been waiting forever.
See what I mean?
Okay.
Kirk, are you ready for me? Do I need to switch over to boardroom? We're discussing.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm out. Alright. How are we doing today? Pretty good. We're gonna switch over to market shit now, so at least before JFresh hops on, I'll try to cover some of the things here. A lot of this will get covered in Pickle's picks too, but getting pretty close to Gamma Max on SPXW at 57.69. We broke above gamma neutral and delta neutral over the last week. Gamma neutral still below DN on the weekly contract, but adjusted delta starting to push towards positive, and gamma continuing to rise now at 9 billion or 9.9 billion.
Did someone say 69?
On the 0DTE side, we're still pretty stacked to the upside. We got a decent amount of interest all the way out to 5750, 5700, and major resistance here proved pretty hard to break last week. It may still continue to be prove somewhat of a resistance, and then there is some call interest building out at 5800 on all expirations as well. I will note that gamma or delta to the upside is not great. There's a bit at 5700, 25, and 50, but above that it falls off really hard. So it'll be hard. It'll be hard to push out above 5750 right now, and even getting above 5700 is a little bit difficult. Most of the delta is going to be to the downside. Into this week's expiration, there's a lot of delta to the downside. So if we were to lose 5650, we could fall down pretty hard. IV is still very low relative to historic vol on the 30. It's pretty low relative to historic vol on the 10. So there could be at least a brief opportunity for IV to turn around before more vol shorting comes in, but the implied moves are falling. And as far as near dated gamma goes, we're kind of reaching the top of that. It would be very, very hard to push out the market above gamma max here, especially given the fact that there's so little interest on the monthly chain. And then if you want to chime in on the macro stuff.
Yeah, is this just the rundown first? No
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah, I'm just kind of, well, I got started late today, and so I've been trying to just
Yeah, I
get as
saw.
much done as I can.
Yeah, sure. Oh, hold on one second. Someone's at my door.
No worries.
Sorry.
I mean, I'll say what I see here, which is that put delta's almost fallen off completely, and call delta has been struggling to move more to the upside. If you look down here at call leverage to the upside of spot, it just falls. So there is no more flat call leverage out to the upside, which we had 2% ago. Now call leverage to the upside is just in a decline. Put leverage, we're also past like the hump on put leverage pretty significantly. And as we move towards the OPEX, I think a lot of this put leverage is going to be falling off. There is still call delta to gain to the upside. But there's far more put delta to gain to the downside from this point. And something that I thought was kind of interesting is that put leverage over the last week flattened. And on Friday, it started to come down alongside a drop in call leverage. Call leverage started falling on the 24th, and then continued falling into the first, or into the second. So it does look like there's some profit taking here at the 56.96 level. And this may in fact be a hard resistance. If it is, that's actually pretty significant. Because a rejection here at the November low would technically like set up a continuation of a bear market. So kind of an interesting level that we're at, and this could just be local resistance, but it could mark the beginning of like a larger pullback or failure, which is also kind of supported on the technical side now that the gap The upside gap is finally filled.
Somebody say a gap was filled.
Yeah, we filled that. We finally filled that upside
Sorry,
gap.
I just keep coming in at perfect. That's what she said moments.
But we've left a bunch of downside gaps.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that gap, that downside gap at like 2,300. I'm waiting for it from
that's
like
that's
the COVID.
yeah, that's the target.
Yep,
Um,
all gaps must fill.
yeah, so I kind of covered everything I thought on like the macro page while you were closing your door. But just kind of noting that like puts or put leverage is starting to flatten out, fall off a bit, and call leverage is falling off pretty quickly. And there's like no call leverage to the upside of spot, which makes me think that calls are being sold out above 5,700. And that might just be an effect from like testing a major resistance. It could be FOMC coming up this week. Like I don't think any of it's
I just think there's just not really much up there, right?
yeah, no, there isn't. I mean,
Bought
if
or sold, there's just not much up there, and so and the puts, I mean, all the sold puts are already over 5% or right at or a little over 5% below us. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's a question of are they going to try to reset and leg up or
well, Gamma Max is
uh,
now at 57.69.
nice.
That's kind of, I mean, if nothing else, that's kind of indicative that we're not in the same market we were in January.
Oh, I mean, yeah, for sure we're not. And while I mean, they're trying to relever the short puts, but they're still nowhere near where they were before. I mean, this is a different regime still for sure.
Yeah, margin is
Um,
still structurally damaged.
Yeah, one thing I did want to talk about. I don't know if you noticed this because I was just kind of piecing a lot of this together over the last day or so. One thing I noticed on Friday, which was enough for me to say, you know what, I'm going to take some of my ill-gotten gains from beta testing Gamma Strike, and I'm going to buy a put
Oh
and
shit.
hold it over the weekend.
Damn.
And I bought it. I top ticked it. So I was actually up 20% at close, and I was thinking of just closing it, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hold it. And the reason for that is because while we were rocketing on Friday, bonds were plummeting, and I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on there? And bonds, I mean, bonds dropped the day before, and that could have been attributed to like high GDP numbers. But then it like kept dropping on Friday, and I was like, this seems suspicious. Um, So I was like, I'm just going to go for it because I feel like this rally is pretty overextended. And then it turns out people on FinTwit noticed that the new Taiwan dollar rocketed
Hmm.
relative to USD. It was the largest daily move in the currency pair in the history of the new Taiwanese dollar.
Interesting.
And
Wonder.
that made me do some more digging to realize that Taiwan has a huge budget surplus in their economy. And so they are awash, and they do most of their trade in dollars. So they're awash in dollars, and they don't want to hold a bunch of dollars for a variety of reasons, like liquidity and things like that. With the U.S., they don't want to be accused of doing nefarious things. So they buy a bunch of U.S. Treasuries with their U.S. dollars, and they hold so many U.S. Treasuries that they don't want to look like they're holding those. So apparently all the life insurance companies in Taiwan um, hold a lot of their capital in treasuries and buy them off of the Taiwan government. And so you've got these Taiwanese life insurance companies that are all holding underwater bonds,
Hmm.
U.S. bonds. And if they have to mark those to market, then they have to sell U.S. bonds to raise cash and then convert that U.S. dollar into new Taiwan dollar to actually, transact in their country, which is what the speculation is occurring is that the life insurance companies are getting squeezed and having to take losses. So the mark to market is some amount of marking to market is happening over there. And I think so Taiwan owns about, like, the government itself owns about $250 billion worth of treasuries.
Uh-huh.
And I think overall, like the whole country, if you include the life insurance companies and everything too, it gets closer to like $1 trillion, which is like the size of Japan, that Japan's holdings. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I just thought that was really curious. Anytime I see a Four Sigma event, I get curious.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not. I mean, I don't really pay attention to the Taiwanese dollar very much. Usually they're kind of not important.
Yeah, I mean nobody does, but it got a little bit of traction, and it didn't get a ton of traction on Twitter, but it got a little bit, and so I just did some digging, and yeah, sure enough,
It's
it's an
kind of
interesting
interesting.
development. Yeah, that was the thing that I was looking at. Also, Trump this morning said, literally just confirmed again that his goal is zero net trade deficits.
Uh-huh.
He said with China, we were losing hundreds of billions of dollars to China, and now we've basically stopped trade with them. So we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars.
I saw
So
that, yeah.
Trump doesn't understand that we subtract the imports because they're already included in the other numbers, and we don't want to double count them. So if the imports go down, that still means GDP and economic activity is going down. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time.
Hmm.
I think he also said a couple days ago, he was saying how if you take out all the bad numbers from GDP, like imports, our GDP numbers look good. So I think he just doesn't understand that you subtract imports because it's already counted in the other numbers, which is kind of incredible to me.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Anyway, fun
I feel
times.
like I feel like Trump gets a lot of his information from his staff and kind of runs with it.
And half of them are getting it from ChatGPT.
Yeah, and they're like a lot of them are woefully underqualified for their positions. So,
Yeah, it's fun times. Yeah, you look at earnings too. I mean, people clearly liked Microsoft and Meta. They had decent revenues and decent earnings, but it seemed like a lot of it wasn't coming from AI.
I felt like
Microsoft,
Amazon and Apple trimmed back pretty hard. Yeah, I agree. Also, Meta, there's like something that like a lot of people didn't talk about with Meta, but their capex is fucking ridiculous. Like 75 billion over the next year.
well, they actually, some of the folks in the call actually asked, like, why do you have to own all of these chips yourself? Why not just rent them from an existing hyperscaler?
Well, because
And of
Meta
course,
wants to be the hyperscaler, right? Like they've been
yeah,
trying
and
to launch their
of course,
cloud platform forever.
Meta didn't really have a great answer for that. I mean, Zuckerberg didn't really have a great answer for any of the AI shit he's doing, because there are no great answers for all of that. But we've been through that many times before. It's just, at least a data point. I don't see anything to indicate that I've missed anything and that there's something special here going on that wasn't there before. Like Microsoft, they even specifically corrected one of the questions that was asked and made it clear that most of their growth in their cloud computing sector came from non-AI services. Amazon's cutting back capex on growth in AI, cloud compute. Microsoft is doing the same, has been for a while. Meta's just kind of off in their own world. I mean, nobody who uses Llama, I don't know. Yeah, so that story seems to continue to be collapsing. Supermicro is their earnings is on Tuesday after the bell, and they came out last week and said, "Hey, we have to do a adjustment to our earnings. Our inventories are really high, and we had a bunch of sales pushed back, so they adjusted their earnings. The quarter's already over, but yeah, they adjusted their earnings just to be safe a week in advance
Did they ever
somehow.
actually release that other earnings report?
I think so.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I know they quote unquote passed an audit with their new auditor.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's clear that that auditor probably didn't do enough due diligence if they're doing shit like this a week before earnings.
Yeah.
Although Nvidia did the same thing, their earnings are coming up soon, and they had to say, hey, because of these Trump restrictions, we're going to have to write off $5.5 billion worth of inventory. But trust us, it's all H20s. It's all the Chinese specific chips. It's not just chips in general, because
Wait
Trump
one
just
second.
blocked them. See, so it's a little bit of conspiracy theory there for me, but I think that that is just a convenient excuse for them to try to slowly say, "Hey, the demand is dropping for our shit, and we can't keep pumping cash into startups to buy our chips back from us in a big circle." So I think the AI narrative continues to decay out from underneath itself. Really, we're just waiting on. It might take through the end of the year, maybe a little farther for it to fully play out, just because of SoftBank coming in and claiming that they're going to give so much money. I mean, we're talking in the order of $40 billion, basically to prop this industry up single-handedly. But and that's going to get trickled out throughout this year and a little bit into the next. But a lot of things have to go right, so they don't have the cash on hand to actually give that 40 billion. So they've got to get loans, and they've got to find somebody to write those loans to them, which still hasn't been completed yet. The ratings agencies have already hinted that they are eyeing a downgrade in the bonds of SoftBank because of all of these loans that they're trying to take out to prop up the AI industry. So really, it's all eyes on SoftBank. Also, because Microsoft pulled out of they had an option for something like it was either 12 billion or 17 billion dollars in compute from CoreWeave. They did not elect that to take that option, and so OpenAI, who has no money and who bleeds money with every search that they serve, whether it is free or paid, has offered to take that option in their stead. So not only does essentially SoftBank have to front run OpenAI's exorbitant losses and the build out for um, Stargate or whatever it's called with Oracle and that crypto company that's never built an AI center before. But they also have to essentially buy all of that compute from CoreWeave on behalf of OpenAI as well. I mean, essentially, that's the shell game that will have to be played. So there's a lot going on in the next, basically the rest of the year as that situation unfolds. I don't think it's going to end well for any of them, but I think that they've given themselves enough of a runway to drag this shit out for another 3 quarters or so. Hopefully less, but we'll see. Um, that remains to be seen how that goes. But yeah, the bubble is slowly crumbling. The narrative is slowly crumbling. Let's see what else interesting. AMD's got earnings this week. Nothing too terrible there. Oh, in regards to the AI narrative crumbling as well, there's more data. So Intel basically came out and said nobody wants the AI PCs. People are actually they are they're actually bottlenecked right now because the demand for their last generation of chips that are non-AI is so high as people avoid these AI chips, trying to save money by going with the better value. You get the same compute without all the AI bloat. That they're supply constrained from their foundries in making those old chips because they were trying to ramp to this new chip. So there is a very real and measurable backlash to AI. Like, people just don't care. They don't understand what it is. They don't want to pay for it and find out later what it is. They don't believe the narrative that it's going to change things because it's not doing anything now. And so I think that speaks more loudly than just about anything. If you look at Microsoft's earnings on devices, on hardware, um, their hardware earnings are again abysmally low. It was like a 3% growth rate, which is another indication that people don't have any interest in upgrading to these new AI computers. And so I think just with that data, it's pretty clear that AI is going to be a huge flop unless somebody comes up with some world-changing, world-changing, use case for it that hasn't been invented yet. Um, so yeah, you combine that with all the macro things, like liquidity crises that might be cropping up in the East. All the tariffs and everything, adding friction to the system, slowing everything down, and the darling of the world, the thing that's supposed to be getting us out of this mess by providing massive productivity growth, is clearly in the last legs of flopping. I think all of this speaks to a very volatile rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
Therefore, I bought one put at 5,700,
I have
which
I have a
which I haven't.
I have a straddle, but I wasn't quite as bearish as you, but I'm getting there.
I have
The
that
more
effect on
well,
people.
no, it was just the more I look at like the weekend data. I don't allow you to influence my stock picks.
That's probably for the best.
But I I did straddle on Sunday night, and it does look kind of like we've just hit a local top. I don't think the market's willing to price in much more than where we're at. And you know what it really reminds me of? Like, if you go back to there is like a period where I feel like there's a lot of historical congruence. If you look back at
Let me
like
guess, it's somewhere in
it
2022.
is, yeah, August of 2022, really specifically.
Oh, what
Um,
happened after that?
well, we went
I
down. We
remember
went
that.
down hard as
I
fuck.
remember that very distinctly. Yes,
I
when
mean,
you
I,
went
I
to the
guess
lows and then
August or
pulled.
March of 2022 would be kind of valid, but I would say August more because it came after like a really severe downturn, and so volatility went very very high as we moved into August, and like the vol shorts came in. But if you remember, like it was all it was all like short dated, and I was like, no, I'm gonna keep staying short. And everyone's like, it's running Gurk, it's a bull market, and I was like, no, I'm gonna keep buying more puts. And like, I remember a few people got burned on that move up because they didn't have the theta to hang out, but it was all driven on like that same kind of short dated like bear market rally type of positioning that we've seen since the bottom of this run, where bulls aren't really
Yeah,
buying the delta. Everything's being driven by like short dated gamma to the upside. It's all like big overnight moves and then shitty intraday moves. um and yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, like that bounce back to like 4,300 back then, in a lot of ways. Especially with like how like gamma neutral's been moving up on SPX for like the last few days. Have you noticed that?
I
Like
haven't, but I'm looking at it now. On
yeah,
SPX or SPXW?
SPX. It's been like moving like a bit
Oh,
further away from spot,
ooh,
which is kind of
yeah.
interesting. Like it just keeps like every time we test higher, it inches up a little more, and it's almost like people are just closing out the longer dated monthly like bullish positioning they had. Like all that like further like all that like June and like December AM expiry shit seems to be kind of falling off of the chain.
Do not want to be in that situation because that basically means that either calls are falling off or puts are coming on.
Yeah, yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Well, it could be
This whole
because we're
fucking.
squeezing.
Well, look at the upside on Delta. Like, there's just nothing above 5,700 until you get out to like 58.25. But there's a lot of in the money Delta.
Yeah. Ooh.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's consistent. It seems overstretched. If they want to push further, they're going to have to find more money somewhere else, or they're going to have to, shift everything upwards, which will probably cause volatility in the process.
yeah. Also, realized vol is like fucking 20 points higher than IV right now on the 30-day.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem to be budging or getting any better. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I
How
think
does 10-day look?
10-day doesn't look. I mean, 10-day is more in line because the HV comes down faster, but it's like it's still a pretty wide spread. I think it's
Yeah. Holy cow! It's still
yeah
3%. Yeah.
3% on SPX. I think it's worse on SPXW.
Let's take a look here.
Yeah, on SPXW it's like almost a little over 4.
Sturdy vol shorters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's huge. All right, cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
IV 60 and 90 are still super elevated.
Oh yeah,
Like
they're
it's
gonna be
that
for
it's
a
that
while.
long term volatility expectation that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And that's pretty interesting. We also got I should probably show you this because we don't track this yet on Gamma Strike, but the forward yield on volatility finally slipped sub-zero on Friday and then just like bounced right back to positive. But that would be a complete mean reversion on that long volatility positioning, which means that this is the opportunity for people who bought bonds or added to their bond portfolio over the last month to go long vol again if they want to.
Yeah, I mean everything just kind of looked to me like a good spot for us to reverse. So yeah, I put a little skin in the game just 'cause it's been a long time and I was bored.
Yeah, that's 90% of my trades nowadays.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
I
I didn't talk at all about Bitcoin. I've been so
I
I've
did a little bit.
I think oh okay. So actually, if you want to share this with people, I did a little bit of extra something here.
Yeah, sure. Let me see it.
Let me find it. Hold on. Got too much shit. Let's
Who the
see.
fuck is Dork? Oh, he's at his
He's
grandma's.
on
Yeah.
he's on vacation.
Oh.
Um yeah, so obviously there's a lot of shit going on here. Let me get this chart in here. Copy paste. All right. So there's a bunch of shit on here. Basically, the green, or I should start with the light. I realize there's two light blues, but bear with me. I threw this shit chart together and moved on. But so the lightest blue, kind of in the middle, overlapping with that purple line, is just the amount of money in ETFs.
Ooh, I'm trying to hold on. Let me pull
Um,
this up for everybody. Ooh, fun. Let me see if I can switch this over. There we go. Got it.
all right. So basically, what I'm doing is looking at how much net inflow is accruing into ETFs and how much they're holding. So it's not just looking at how much they're holding today, but it's looking at the flows every day and
Mm-hmm.
then calculating the net value over time.
Yeah.
But so the light blue, just ETF holdings, which is kind of dancing around with that purple line in the middle. That's just raw ETF holdings. And what you can see is that those have been pretty flat since it started running, people started piling in right around the election, speculating on Trump winning, and then that continued to pile in after Trump won, and that flattened out, around his or around January, and then I think it pumped a little bit more near his inauguration when he said something about sovereign wealth fund,
Yeah.
but that then since pulled back, and so it's basically just been kind of flat, at least in terms of money. Now, if you look at the green one, that factors in how much Bitcoin in dollars has been mined over time. So it takes all the money that's going into the ETFs and it pulls them out. That value, which is what money coming in minus money going out the other side to the miners, seems to be a much better indicator of price than any other one of these values, which just goes to show how inflationary and dilutive this asset is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just include ETFs, roughly half the money that's been poured into the ETFs has already been mined and extracted.
Yeah.
What I've added since then is I've added sailors buying since the time that the ETFs were started.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the darker blue that goes out to the very top.
Yeah.
So as you see, if you just look at ETFs plus Sailor, it's just constantly going up, 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 and Sailor's been really taking a lot off the table, or taking a lot off the market. Since retail stopped plowing in, and if you subtract what's being mined from that one, you get the purple one, which is basically flat. So I think what Sailor is trying to do is provide a floor for the market,
Mm.
and he can only continue to do that so long as there is a spread between his company, which is basically just the value of the Bitcoin he owns,
Yeah.
and the value of the stock, which is what he's doing. Every time the stock runs, he buys a bunch of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Um, and I was also thinking that this Bitcoin run was probably going to peter out soon because there was a massive amount of, I think it was 400 strike calls on MicroStrategy, or strategy now,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, that expired on Friday.
Yeah. I saw that.
Like a massive amount of them. So I was like, well, this options pump on strategy might be petering out on Friday over the weekend, and sure enough, Bitcoin's down a little bit right now, so we'll see how it goes. But
Yeah, I mean, someone asked about MicroStrategy for the weekend analysis, and I was kind of looking at Bitcoin, and it rejected off of like an old level I had at 5730, but it was like a little bit higher, but the rejection formed under it, or 97,030 dollars. And then if this continues to fail, like on the technical side, it's probably going to pull back to support at 89,164. That's a really important inflection point because right now it's kind of, I mean, technical analysis works really well on Bitcoin because it's so sentiment driven, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very much in like just like bearish consolidation. And a failure here could mark like a new low because buyers who came in at the top back in March, who got rugged, are willing to exit here. And if those buyers are pulled, they probably won't get back in until there's a lower price, which leaves like a really substantial amount of downside room.
Yeah,
And
I agree. And
Bitcoin
there's
selling tends to propagate a lot more Bitcoin selling, so its downside reactions are always really violent.
wait, are you implying that the only value of Bitcoin is to speculate on its future value in dollars?
Yes.
Oh no.
Also as a leveraged dollar asset, right?
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
still tied inherently to the dollar, which has been struggling to recover for a little while now. It's bounced back, but it's still pretty bad shape, and it doesn't look like the EU economies are getting any worse right now. They seem to be picking up a little bit of inflation, a little bit of growth. Um, and the euro is definitely poised to just shit all over the dollar
Yeah,
over the
I
next like
agree.
nine
And
months.
for the reasons I described earlier, I'm definitely gonna be looking at the open tonight on what rates do and what the dollar does. Um, but yeah, so another interesting thing that is going against Bitcoin is apparently, and I had no idea. Apparently, the Arizona legislature
Mm-hmm.
passed a law that would allow the pension fund of Arizona to buy Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But the governor of Arizona vetoed it. So that veto just went through like late last week,
Oh
which is
shit.
going to, is a bearish thing for
Yeah.
Bitcoin. And then you have earnings for a couple of so Coinbase and Marathon both have earnings on Thursday. Marathon being one of the biggest miners of Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see what their financials look like because
Worse than they used to be because
yeah,
of the halvings. I I
yeah. So
I feel like
some of some
I outlined that like 2 years ago. Like, um, as you get more and more halvings, the miners just perform worse and worse over time, especially because they sell all the Bitcoin that they mine at market when they mine it.
yeah, and I mean that's if you look at my chart, I mean it's really hard to find any reason other than miners selling coins for why Bitcoin would be struggling so much from its highs of 105 back in the start of the year.
Yeah.
Um, And but it'll be interesting to see how much they're hurting because I do think that they are trying to hold the coins as well. I mean, everyone's trying to play like the sailor bet of if we all hold these coins, they might go way up and then we can profit later. But if they get screwed and they have to sell whatever they're holding, because Marathon's still a pretty big holder of these coins, then yeah, that'll be interesting.
See this divergence here?
So yeah, I'm surprised to everybody. I'm feeling a little bearish. So I hope you all have calls.
JFresh.
What?
See this?
What? I'm not looking at the stream
Oh,
recording show.
bastard.
Hold on, I can pull it up. Hold
I
on, hold on, hold on.
I feel like anybody interested in Bitcoin at these prices should probably look at this chart.
What is this?
It's Dixie and Bitcoin.
Fun.
Just in case
That's
anybody
so
thought
fun.
Bitcoin was worth anything besides dollars.
It's decoupled.
It,
It's become its own thing
it's
now.
not. It's not decoupled.
Well,
It will recouple. This is also a really good way of looking at like dollar leverage demand in the market too. So in like because hedge funds so ubiquitously use Bitcoin to gain leverage dollar margin, right? um, this is a good way of looking at that demand for leverage. Anytime you have huge divergences in BTC and dollar, it's usually like very short dated, highly leveraged positions. So what if our whole bullish bounce is just nothing?
I mean,
Just another
yeah.
way to get out at the top again. What if Dixie just rockets up? I mean, hey, I don't
Why
think
would?
it's moving that fast. You'd probably need at this point. I think Dixie would need probably a decent amount of time to get back to like 104, 105. Did
Yeah.
anybody notice
I
that?
mean,
Does anybody notice? Here's another thing that no one's noticing. When Bitcoin was at 104, 105, so is Dixie. Like almost like a perfect 1 to 10.
nice.
Hear me out. Century bonds, those are not going to be
Have
well
those
received right now.
have those ever worked out for
I actually
retail
don't think the
periods?
Sant is stupid enough to do that currently.
Yeah, I
And he
agree.
can't because there's a debt ceiling. So you've got at
As
least 2 months, right, before he can fucking even pitch the idea.
yeah,
And he
they
needs
got to figure
Trump
that
to
out.
back off all of his fucking hostile trade negotiations, which isn't going to happen.
Yeah, the Sun is too busy helping them figure out how to cut taxes right now, which apparently is the priority. Right? He was talking about
How do they cut
getting a bill
taxes when
out
the
by
treasury's
July or
broke?
something. I don't know.
There,
That's a great question.
it's got to be
They've
it's going to be a
that
shift in
hasn't stopped
taxes.
them. That hasn't stopped them for the last 10 years,
How do
8 years,
Republicans feel
whatever.
now that Trump's like, I need to tax billionaires?
I don't know. I'm sure they'll love it.
They should. Everyone should love the idea of taxing billionaires more money and corporations.
Kirk confirmed not a billionaire.
Do you know that like we only paid like 20% in taxes? It was like nothing. It
Yeah, it's less than that.
was like a joke.
It's like 16
And
or
we
17.
were completely honest. Like have really simple financials. We don't even have shell corporations yet. We could probably get that shit down to like 5%.
Yeah, let's get it to 0.
Like all the other corporations. Just pay
All right, we're going
nothing.
to Ireland. Can I be
Mm.
the VP of Ireland operations since I would fit in
Well,
well there?
if Trump totally casts aside the Supreme Court and the legislature, then we can always just move Gamma Strike to like the Netherlands or Ireland.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both of those sound great.
yeah, we just hire some Irish or Norwegian people, and boom, we have a reason
I
for
mean,
being there. Can you teach
how Irish do I
engineering
have to be?
in Ireland?
I mean, they're kind of dumb, but yeah, I can try.
Wow, I'm Irish. You dick.
I'm Irish.
I know.
No, I'm talking about like just that island, that whole island, not like for whatever reason they don't aspire as much as the US to. I mean, there's a reason that everybody in the international community comes here for school
they spent
relative to there.
they spent like the better part of the last century just under totalitarian rule by the British. It may have like abject poverty, starvation, and revolution might have affected their
Yeah, but all those people came here and now Now they're all doing all of their thinking here, which brings more of them here.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
What if they go home?
They just don't have the Well, China's a different story. China is trying to eat our lunch here, and like just offering the best people exorbitant amounts of money to come and do research, making be like, well, I can fight here for scraps to do research, or the Chinese government will just throw millions of dollars a year at me, and I can just run my lab how I want and not have to spend all this time doing all this other shit,
Yeah, and
administrative shit.
also no ethics barriers, which is nice.
Yeah, so they're actually being fairly successful. I mean, I think they're dialing in on the amount of money it takes to poach pretty much whoever they want to come over there. But
I'm gonna buy a
otherwise,
house in Hong Kong for when it becomes the United States.
otherwise, yeah, the other countries they don't have the resources and infrastructure to even closely match the U.S. Although that's not going to stop the government from trying. Doge just dozed the NSF and dropped indirect costs, which is basically the costs that go to fund the infrastructure around the camp, all the places that do the research for the NSF.
Mm-hmm.
They just cut that from around, most places ask for about 33% in indirect costs, and they capped it at 15. So they cut it in half, which means that that's primarily going to cut the budget. Hopefully, it'll cut some budgets in the administrative staff, which is, in my opinion, bloated and relative to their usefulness. But where it's also definitely going to hit is in the budgets for large equipment procurement, setting up like centers of excellence and very, research intensive experimental areas. So that's going to make it even more difficult long term to compete with China, who's throwing money at people to buy all the fanciest equipment and do all the best science. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see what
Are you getting
effect
ready
that
to move to
has.
China too?
Uh,
Let's just move everything
I
to
don't know.
China.
I don't know. Well, they what's the latency with Chicago from China?
I don't know. We could probably work something out. Not good.
Yeah, we'll see if Elon Musk can beam it to us with his mind waves. Is he doing mind waves yet? I feel
Skynet.
like he's right at the
All right. Well, you
sneaker
won last
cell
week.
sandwich.
All of the
I
price action
did.
I expected occurred on the first, second, and third day of the week.
Oh,
and then
yeah,
and then we
that was fun.
and then we moved up 5% from the low of the week after a negative GDP print.
All
Should
I
we
did
talk
was just
about negative GDP
all.
and why it was negative?
Yeah, it's negative because everybody front loaded the tariffs, right?
Yeah. Imports were super high, but that means when it revises, it's probably going to revise back up to positive growth, which then reignites all the inflationary pressure, which the bond market's already reacting to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The bond
the
market's
bond
react.
market, just so everyone understands, one of the reasons the yields are going up, besides whatever crazy shit happened in Taiwan, the reason yields are going up right now is because growth is expected, and the reason we bounced 5% after a negative GDP report is because growth is expected to end up positive after the next two revisions for quarter one.
Yeah, and the strong jobs report didn't help. Although,
No.
just to give you a sense of how ridiculous these numbers are, the non-seasonally adjusted number of jobs that were added in the month of April was close to 500,000, according to this raw surveys. So yeah, I mean, take that for what it's worth, right? They had to adjust it by 300,000 or over, 2/3 of the actual raw value that they got to get the number that they have, which means to say that The number is somewhere between negative 300,000 to positive 500,000. So somewhere in there is what the actual jobs were. So if you don't feel like you can very confidently act on that information, nobody else agrees with you. They all saw that 177 or whatever it was and jumped right in.
Yep.
Everybody always overreacts to this data, which is interesting. But it's also why the Fed's not going to cut anytime soon, because you can't take 1 month of data and act on it. It's not reliable. You have to be on the year time frame, and the Fed will always be behind because it must be by definition.
Gronk, you love Bucket. Here's some more nights of your smooth timber as I wonder if futures are rippling or slippling. Thanks, man.
Slippling.
Thanks, sphincter salad sandwich. That sounds stagflationary. It's not. It's inflationary.
Yeah. I mean, we're still spending like.
Yeah, hold on. We stopped. We've stopped. Well, we've stopped being able to spend. Everything's just refinancing now because we hit the ceiling.
Yeah, but we're still spending.
All right, fine. But we need money to come in to spend more money.
Can you ask Jay Fresh? I don't get this negative to positive range. Well, the seasonal adjustment, which assumes that the future or the present will be exactly like it was 1 year in the past, which you can ask yourself how much you believe that April is just like it was the last April, given that we now have all of these tariffs and everything flying around. And you can imagine, oh, everybody is making all of the same decisions, all the same dynamics are exactly the same. And then say, okay, well, the number was 500,000 and they revised it down to 177, right? So the uncertainty is somewhere on the order of 300,000 at least, because all of this information comes from surveys and not hard data. So they literally send out something like 30,000 surveys to random workers, and they send out around 60,000 surveys to businesses, and they ask them various questions about, do you have a job? How many jobs have you given? Blah, blah, blah. And then they take that and then they extrapolate it out over time. But they also have to make a bunch of other assumptions, like how many businesses were created in over that time, which they won't know from these surveys directly. They largely have to guess. And how much has the population grown over that time, which, they don't have a super great handle on a quarter-to-quarter basis because the census is only done once every 10 years, right? So you take all of this uncertainty and you compound it on top of each other. And that's why these numbers on a month over month basis are basically worthless. They do all of this to try to give themselves a little bit of a look behind the curtain before it's way too late, but it's ultimately not useful, right? And you can it only gives people a reason to overreact too quickly to anything. So I think it should all be done away with, but I'm not in charge. But yeah, I mean, you can't look at anything like that and say with any certainty on a month over month basis that you have any idea what's going on.
I think one important thing came from the jobs data, as useless as the numbers are, is that the Fed will continue to be completely useless and irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they supposed to do?
They can't
act until they have.
Hold on. They can do one thing. They could raise rates.
Why would they do that? That would increase inflation.
Yeah.
If they raise rates, they'll increase inflation, and if they drop rates, they'll blow up bonds. What are they supposed to do? Why do you think they're not dropping rates?
No, I know.
They started dropping, and then they stopped. The reason they stopped is because bonds were blowing out. They're like, oh shit, everybody's addicted to high rates with no risk.
Yeah.
If we take that away, they're not going to take on more risk. They're just going to say, fuck you.
This is largely why we got a recession in the early 90s, was for similar reasons. because the Fed tapering eventually just pushed us into a recession following the spike in Fed fund rates in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But we had a lot more time back then, and debt levels weren't as extreme. There was significantly less burden from, or leverage risk from international finance. No, yield curves aren't going to. Well, the 10-2 is probably not going to invert again. The 10-3, I think, already reinverted, didn't it?
I don't think any of that matters. I think it's all just
The bear
people just
steepener, I
hanging
think the
on.
bear steepener matters.
I mean, rates up matters, but I think people are all just holding on, trying to do what they can to game in as long as they can.
Yeah, I mean, well, even if rates push up, what the fuck are the banks going to buy bonds at high yields with? They're broke. They're gonna sell their old shitty treasuries for a loss and buy the new treasuries at a higher it's garbage. I know Basant said he's working on a new like liquidity facility for that, but I mean it's still gonna take him fucking 10 years to shut off all of that bad debt. I guess
Yeah,
seven
by then it
seven
will
more
have been,
now.
and none of that really matters. The challenge is that we're creating so much new debt. I mean, right now we're not because we're just draining the TGA and
Yeah.
running off of the taxes that came in. But we're generating so much debt that I mean, we need massive amounts of either real growth or inflationary monetary growth just to manage all that. Because right now we're every year the banks give, but well, really the buyers of debt give the Treasury 2 trillion to get back 1 trillion. You can't do that forever.
Yeah, we're gonna get closer to a repo crisis in the short term. I think that's I mean I know your favorite bond boy Brick and Brattle doesn't believe repo has any effect, but money's staying in repo quite a bit longer than you would expect after the end of month. And as we push up against that debt ceiling, you're gonna see more and more money start piling into repo again. Um, not really a great time either.
Yeah, I mean people are taking that sweet free money, and it's going to cost us later. It feels good now, but it's going to cause damage later because it's just adding to the debt, right? I mean,
Well,
what is it
repo
like a
repo needs to
trillion?
remain high enough to pick up the slack from the Treasury um,
Here's
issuing new
here's the
bonds.
thing: if you want to balance the budget, all you have to do is drop rates to zero.
So destroy the banking system.
Yeah, I mean, you'd eliminate a lot of that deficit that is not being picked up by just natural growth in credit. So if you could somehow get the interest rates to zero without hurting credit, you could solve that issue and rates would stay under control. But I don't see how you wouldn't. I mean, that shock would be chaos.
I mean, if repo drains, the Fed has to go to QT. So or cut off QT. They have to end it.
Aren't they already planning on ending it?
Probably too late though. I think the pressures in the repo market are building now.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's
There's
definitely pressure.
147 billion in repo right now, and I think there's like what 160 billion in new issuance over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun times.
It's gonna get real tight real fast.
Yeah. So anyway, I bought a put. I hope you guys have calls.
I do. I have both. All right. What are you predicting for this week? We have FOMC, which is just the fucking worst. I hate FOMC weeks, especially when we're at like major resistance. They're always so unfun.
What day is it on?
We got ISM services tomorrow. We should talk about that too. ISM services has not been doing well. It's expected to fall again, but prices are again expected to rise. Like that's the analyst consensus, but it's supposed to remain expansionary. If services falls, if services falls to into contraction and prices go up, that's gonna scare the shit out of the market.
Yeah, I don't know what my expectation is, just because oil has gone so much lower than I could have thought would be realistic or make sense.
Which I think we saw reflected in like ISM manufacturing prices, which did fall a little. But I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think the services exposure to oil cost is very high.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I
think I
don't
think
I don't really
correlation there
know
is
what
pretty
to.
low.
I don't really have a good read on that data set. I've kind of just told myself I don't have the space in my head to really noodle on it a whole lot and think about its
Well, I
consequences.
can tell you
So,
some baseline things. Correlation between services prices and CPI is very high over time. Like they diverge occasionally, but then CPI tends to catch up. Um, like more than like 82% or something like that correlation. So like ISM services is generally used by the like Fed fund futures market as like a initial indicator of where like CPI, like headline CPI is going to fall. And so if and then the entire US economy from a growth perspective is services based. Um,
yep.
and so, I mean, services has
It's
fallen,
all healthcare too.
yeah, but still services like health services, right? Um,
Yeah.
if you look at like ISM services over the last like couple years, like you go like 5 years back, um, like we kind of hit a low in expansion back in like end of 2022. And we didn't really recover from that until October of last year, where services kind of surged in September, October, but then they fell right back to that like high at like 54, 53. And then the last 2 months they've fallen like below the median range for the last 3 years. And then like if it falls any further, it's gonna slip into contraction, which we've only seen a couple of times since 2022. I think once was December of 2022, and then not even May of 23, April of 24, and June of 24, which were all like fairly significant low points in equities. So negative or contraction in services is like a really big deal. And then also like the employment numbers and new orders activity there is really important for like like high tech multiples. If those fall, then the multiples have to contract in line with that. So that should give you without like going really into the data, that should give you like a baseline to understand it from at least.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of that. I mean, there's no reason to expect inflation to go down, but I think I have my prediction now with all this information in my head.
Yeah. Hold on one second. I think I got a
Yeah, yeah,
knock. Let
yeah,
me
yeah.
just check because I have a bunch of deliveries coming today.
A lot of goodies. Speaking of goodies, I left a little Easter egg in the SPX chat last night. Hope you guys saw it. Coming soon to a service near you. Also, trying to backfill our end of day data back to 2016. A lot of stocks I'm not seeing much back past 2017. So for a lot of it, it's 2017. But out of the 840 tickers that we track, I finished backfilling 104 of them. So we're on our way, but it's a lot of freaking data. So hopefully we'll start rolling out some of that data, at least for the bigger tickers that I've already done in tranches, because this is going to take forever, but we will have the data. Oh yeah, very movable. Yeah, so here's my prediction. This is not biased in any way. So we're gonna open. I always just open where we close, just because I don't want to try to play overnight moves. But we're going to drop to 5650 by Tuesday. Are you here? Did you leave again? He's gone. He jilted
All
me
right.
at the prediction.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
They delivered like a bunch of Amazon packages like outside the building, so I was freaking out. But the guy just came up and said they're just holding them at the desk.
Oh, all right. Is it those Amazon packages?
Yeah, yeah. So I was worried.
I'm not getting mine till Tuesday.
I know. Sometimes they take the Amazon packages, they just leave them in front of my building, like on the fucking street.
How is that even a thing?
I don't know. They like don't want to interact with like they don't want to do the check-in process at the desk because they have to like fill out like a little thing like who the package is for and what apartment
They have
number.
they have they have quotas and stuff. That
Yeah,
they,
and so sometimes they just like leave a pile of Amazon boxes in front of the building.
so
And
Amazon
sometimes people
sucks.
just grab them. Like
Yeah. Well, I heard like UPS is trying to reduce the number of Amazon parcels just because Amazon pays so little per
Mhm.
parcel relative to other places. So yeah, Amazon just sucks.
Yeah, they do. I think
What are you
that's
gonna
the
do?
general consensus.
Successfully created a monopoly and then ruined it like every other monopoly. Okay, so we're gonna close. Well, we'll at some point between now and end of day Tuesday, we're gonna hit 5650. So just say 5650 by Tuesday.
Okay, hold on. Let me get rid of these. All right. So 5650 by Tuesday. All right.
That's where they hit the stop I'm gonna put on my put. Then we're gonna go up to gamma neutral by midday Wednesday FOMC,
Oh,
like the same day.
okay. Oh,
And then we're gonna go to 5600 end of week.
okay. I kind of like that. That's not bad, actually. God damn it. I hate it when we agree. Let me see.
Well,
I
now that I have skin in the game, I want to try and make a semi-reasonable prediction so that I can act on it. This is more for me than for anybody else.
I think fill the downside gap, and then I agree, move up into FOMC, but I think back to 5650, and then hmm, let me say flat into the end of the day on the Fed decision, and then maybe move. Hmm.
Okay, you can just admit I had a decent prediction and you can copy it a little.
I'm in. I think we could drop a little bit more than 50. I think vol's still high enough that we can revisit like DN on the downside. But I agree that we probably bounce back into the Fed. And then I'm thinking flat following the Fed just to burn everybody and bring realized vol down. But then, fuck, I really don't see the case for moving up into the back half of the week. That's my only problem with this. What's later in the week? Do we have anything? Jobless
On Friday, like
claims.
every single Fed chair is giving a speech.
Of course they are. This is why we did nothing. We have productivity and labor costs on Thursday. We have a 30-year auction. Ooh, that's not going to be
Oh,
pretty.
they're predicting minus zero point 0.6 non-farm productivity quarter over quarter.
What
Labor
about
costs
AI?
5.5.
What about
You want to know you want to know what job is still in very strong demand right now, other than healthcare jobs like nurses and healthcare services, because all the boomers are getting old, and the wealth transfer isn't coming to you from your boomer parents; it's coming from them just directly to healthcare, the
prompt
healthcare industry.
prompt
So
engineer?
within the health, no,
Wow.
administrative assistants and office workers,
Oh shit, I want one of those.
all the shit that AI was supposed to replace first, is doing great. You want to know what's also doing well? After you go, there was that huge peak during COVID or right after COVID, like 2021, 2022, and then a huge plummet in software engineers, but that's just been steadily growing just fine. So no evidence that software engineers are being replaced at all. And actually, I saw recently there were people who were saying, wouldn't it be a great idea if you could create a center that was managed by someone where someone could take an interview and the interviewer could be reasonably certain that the interviewee did not have access to any AI tools while they were answering questions during the interview. So it's almost like nobody wants AI to be in charge of programming anything. It sucks butt.
I'll be your administrative assistant for free if you share with me all of your trades. Ooh.
Even the experimental ones on futures that you blow up.
Yeah, what about those?
Yeah, I don't know if you won his trades. His portfolio size is so large that he takes on risks that would destroy you. He was just talking earlier how he was holding during August of 2022 for the drop into October, and a lot of people didn't make it with him because they didn't have
Not only
they
did I
didn't have
hold, I like
capital.
doubled and then quadrupled
Yeah,
down.
the mechanics, the portfolio mechanics between you and him are probably vastly different, and I would not wish that on any of you.
I mean, just so you know, all of my like long-term stock holdings I've almost written all of them up in Pickles picks. There's a few exceptions, but generally, if I'm taking like a long position on something or I'm gonna own it, I put it in Pickles picks, and those have been very good over the
Don't worry, Jen
years.
Jen. If we need an assistant to work for free, you're going to be first in line.
That's what Gamma Strike needs: more free labor. We don't have enough free labor.
We have only free labor right now. We do need to pay a few people.
All right. I think that's a good place to call it quits for the week. Thanks for coming on. Sorry it was so late,
Yeah.
but at least you guys were busy and found shit to do.
Oh yeah, always doing something. Yeah, good to talk. I'll see you in a few hours for futures.
Yep. Yep. See you
Hopefully
there.
down so I can set a stop on that put.
If it's infidelity, don't forget that you can close it in the pre-market.
Ooh,
If it's
it
on,
is infidelity because I haven't done the work to just switch over to a better brokerage.
I know. I know you would never.
As
Do you
I'm
know?
pretty
I
sure
just
like
want to say, do
60%
you
of
know how
this
many
community is.
times on Webull that you sold? Like, if you'd had Webull when you were selling like 20 spreads in the money at close, there were so many times where if you weren't on Fidelity, you could have just closed with like 80% profits.
That was fun.
It
That was a
was.
lot of
It
fun.
was. You blew up a lot of money that month.
That was fun. I made a lot of money too, though.
You
When I
did. You
blew it
did.
up.
You did both make and blow up. And then you were like, I'm quitting the stock market. Which
And
was,
here I am
yep.
with my one put. No, I've been trading zero DTEs off and on the last couple of weeks with our Gamma Strike stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. Still up on that.
Nice. Yeah, the high certainty
Yeah.
moves on Gamma Strike are getting really obvious.
Yeah, it's
Which is
just all about, for me, it's just patience of waiting for it and not trying to overread the data because it's telling me so much about the market. You gotta kind of have to shut some of it out. But yeah, it's been fun.
nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that. We'll make a trader review yet.
Well, yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying not to like. I'm trying to do things that are boring. So like, it's like, oh, it's one put and it's whatever.
You can make a lot of money on one put.
I know. Don't. This is how it starts. This is how it starts.
I'm just saying,
The
like a
market's
few weeks ago,
I'm gonna be.
one put was substantial.
I'm gonna be down 25% tomorrow, and I'll be like, well, I could close it and take my loss and reposition later, or I could double down.
Mm. You know what? When
That's how it starts.
here's something someone once told me. And he was not a good trader, but he was a fun guy to talk to. You know, the when you bought your put or your well, he said put at the time. I'll quote him directly. When you bought your put, you thought it was a good price, and now you don't want to buy it at a discount. uh,
Right. But that's the danger, right? You're
yeah,
also just wrong, and you're doubling down on being wrong.
yeah, you are. If you're down 25%, you're definitely wrong.
Yeah. Well, unless you're trading zero DTs, and then you just have been holding it for more than 5 seconds.
That's the shit that gets me in trouble. It got him in trouble too. He lost his job.
All right. All right. See you. See you at 6 p.m. Eastern for a fun futures weekend.
All right, have a good one, man. I'll see you later.
All right. Take it easy.
Later. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, I should be around most of the rest of the day. I'll try to answer them. I'll think I'm going to try to get Pickles picks out tonight, so I'll be up pretty late. Because it's not doing the weekly on Monday mornings. Even with like 4 hours, it's not enough time. So yeah, I'll try to push that out tonight, and that way you guys will have a little bit more time with it before market open. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Peace.